Hey Spark kids, hey Sparky, how's it going? Sparky says he's having an ordinary day. Oh, I quite like an ordinary day, do you? Oh dear. Sparky says he wants something exciting to happen. Well, we're here with all the Spark kids. That's quite exciting, isn't it? Okay. Well, I think we're actually going to have a look at some ordinary days, what to do on ordinary days in our episode today. So that's quite good. Should we go and do it? Let's go. Can anyone remember Caleb? We met him back in Moses' story. That's right, he was one of the spies who went into Jerusalem. When all of the other spies except them were saying that they would never be able to take the land, Caleb was the one who stood up and said, "Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it." But the rest of the spies made the people scared, and God said they would not be able to enter the promised land because they didn't trust him. And then they had to wander the wilderness for 40 years, and all the people who had been there at that time died before Joshua took the Israelites into the promised land. But back at that time, God made another promise to Caleb. He said, "But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit and has followed me fully, I will bring into the land into which he went, and his descendants shall possess it." Now fast forward 45 years. The Israelites have entered the land and fought off lots of armies. At this point, Caleb comes to Joshua and he says this, "You know what the Lord said to Moses concerning you and me. I was 40 years old when Moses sent us to spy out the land, and I brought him word as was in my heart. But the others made the people's hearts melt, but I fully followed the Lord my God. And Moses swore on that day, saying, 'Surely the land on which your foot has trodden will be your inheritance forever, because you have wholly followed the Lord.' And now, look, the Lord has kept me alive since the time he spoke these words to Moses, while Israel walked in the wilderness. Now I am 85 years old, and I'm still as strong today as I was then. So now give me the hill country of which the Lord spoke on that day. For you heard on that day how the Anakim people lived there with great fortified cities. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall drive them out just as the Lord said." Then Joshua blessed him, and gave Hebron to Caleb, and it became his inheritance, because he wholly followed the Lord, the God of Israel. And Caleb drove out from there the people who lived there, and passed it down to his children too. Beep, 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 beep. You wake up, you get up out of bed, you get your clothes on ready for the day, you do your teeth, you wash your face, you go to the toilet, you have breakfast, yum, 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 yum. You get your shoes on, you get your coat on, you get your bag on, you get your school uniform, PE kit thing on, you are ready to go. Isn't it strange that we often do a lot of the same things every single day? And I don't know about you, but when I know all these things from Spark Kids and the Bible and Jesus about how God does amazing things, and we read these stories in the Bible, doesn't it sometimes feel we should be doing something a little bit less ordinary? Well, let's talk about Caleb. I love Caleb. He is one of my favourite Bible people. I can't wait to meet him in heaven. But because we see Caleb full of faith. We see him back 45 years ago in our last series, The Great Escape, when he was one of the spies having a look at the land. And when he is in that moment full of faith, he says, "We can take them, let's go." And at that point where the rest of the Israelites are terrible and moaning and don't believe in God, God sees Caleb's faith and gives him a promise. And then we don't read anything about Caleb for ages and ages in the Bible, which is actually 45 years long. He disappears for 45 years and then he shows up again, and he is still absolutely full of faith and ready to go. He's 85 years old. That is so old. But he says, I'm as strong as I ever was. I am ready for battle. I still believe that God can do anything through me. So what do you reckon Caleb's been up to for the last 45 years? Well, I can tell you. He's spent the last 40 years when they're wandering desert doing the boring daily life things. He was wandering around the desert with the rest of them. He was putting up tents and putting down tents. He was eating his food and probably washing up. He was clearing out things. He was sorting stuff out, doing the daily, boring, day-to-day, ordinary life again and again and again. And then when they came into the promised land, he spent 5 years with the rest of them, battling with the rest of the Israelites, helping them win this incredible land, which isn't even going to be his, because his is back there, like God said. Caleb hasn't been the big hero like Joshua or like Levi. He hasn't been the one that everyone talks about or thinks about. But Caleb has faithfully done every single ordinary thing that God has put before him. He has held on to his faith and his belief in God. And as he is faithful, God is so faithful to him. God fulfills his promise, keeps Caleb strong and healthy until it's time for him to take this land that God has promised for him and his family for years and years and years to come. Spark Kids, sometimes we think the ordinary day-to-day things that we do are not important. Things like tidying our room or being kind to people or saying our prayers every night or helping our grown-ups or going to church or brushing our teeth. These can feel like small, boring, ordinary things, but actually, just like Caleb, when we do the small, ordinary things faithfully, we are being faithful to God and he is faithful to us. A lot of our Christian life isn't about seeing miracles every single moment, but about being faithful in the daily minutes of our lives. And as we work on being faithful, God is eternally faithful to us. He'll show up. He'll give us what we need. He'll help us. Spark Kids, I want to be faithful like Caleb. I want to, in 45 years' time, I want to say, I'm as ready for battle as I ever was. I believe in God as much, if not more, than I ever did. We're going to pray together that God will help us to be faithful in the small, ordinary, everyday minutes of our lives. Why don't you close your eyes and hold out your hands and repeat this prayer after me. Dear God, sometimes doing little things feels boring and repetitive, but I know you're there in every moment. Please help me to be faithful and to follow you in the small things. Amen. Awesome. I'll see you next week, Spark Kids. That was cool, wasn't it, Sparky? So I think Caleb had lots and lots of ordinary days like us, but he was so faithful that then he had some extraordinary days. Sparky says he likes Caleb. So do I. So do I. Shall we have a look at the craft we're doing? So today, Spark Kids, because Caleb was faithful, and dogs are famously faithful, aren't they, Sparky? He says yes. We're going to make a dog puppet of our own. Why are you so surprised, Sparky? You didn't know that dog puppets existed. Interesting. But you are going to make this cool dog puppet out of a cardboard tube, and I can't wait to see what yours look like. And we'll see you next week. Bye.